Hi everyone, let me ask you a question. Have you ever tried to explain what you do to your family and friends and gotten a blank look? Or is fear holding you and your online business back right now? Now, if you answered yes to either of those, you're going to love this month's free newsletter. How do you get a copy? Head on over to writecom.com now. And by the way, if you want to make more money with your online business, you are going to love our coffee bean money making idea inside. So head over to Writecom, that's WRITECOME.com, and you'll find the newsletter waiting for you over there. Hi, this is Barry here, and you are very, very welcome to today's podcast episode from writecom.com. And today's podcast episode is entitled 50 Things at 50, Part 4. Now, these episodes will probably make more sense if you listen to them in reverse order. But what I'm doing at the moment is I'm going through a list of 50 things I've learned on the way to coming to my 50th birthday. Now, some of these things are things I wish the younger version of me knew. Some of these things are life lessons and business tips, and who knows, maybe they might be useful to you. So in part 4, we are going to go from 31 onwards. Now, 31, I would say to you that time will pass no matter what you're doing. You know, sometimes we look at the thing that we're about to do. Sometimes it might take maybe a couple of weeks to do. Sometimes it may take a couple of months or maybe a year or maybe more. And we look at how long it's going to take us and we think, you know, I'm never going to get there, or it's too big for me to do. But what I'd say to you is that time is going to pass anyway. You know, if it was going to take you maybe 6 months to write a fiction book, you could lie on the sofa for 6 months and those 6 months would pass. So maybe in thinking that, you know, something is going to take too long to do, just remember that time is going to pass anyway, no matter what you do. So wouldn't it be better maybe to do things that are making you happy, something that is constructive, even though it is going to take you a long time, because the time will pass anyway. Now, number 32 is that nobody can relate to perfect people. You know, we like to put on an air of perfection. You know, sometimes we might record an episode of a podcast over and over again, or we would edit a video to cut out all the bad bits and make ourselves look professional and make it look like we're an expert. But sometimes people can't, you know, relate to perfect people. You know, sometimes it's better to show stuff where maybe you've made mistakes, things that are maybe going to embarrass you, or show maybe a part of you where you're just exposing warts and all of yourself, because it's only then that people can actually relate to you as a human being. You know, if you seem too professional, if you seem too perfect, people are going to think, well, how can I relate to that person? You know, how can I maybe hire them as a coach, or how can I expect to go on the journey they have gone on because they are so perfect? So sometimes, as Ben Settle says, sometimes it's better showing the skeletons that's in the closet, because that will build a bond with you and your followers, because nobody can relate to a perfect person. Now, 33 is a business tip, and it is that people buy from those they know, they like, and they trust. You know, some people might say to you that the piece of software that you are about to do is going to make you an absolute fortune, or that if you throw enough buy buttons on the internet, you are going to retire at an early age. But when you think about it, the customers that are going to buy from you are only going to buy from you because possibly they know you, definitely that you like you, and that they trust you. Because, you know, trust, likability, and knowing you are going to be things that are going to come into their buying decision. You know, nobody is on the internet right now with a credit card in hand just saying to themselves, how many buy buttons can I click on today? How many products can I buy? No, they are buying from people that they know and like and trust. And if you think about it for a moment, the reason you go to maybe some of the stores that you go to, the reason you buy some of the books that you buy, and the people that you follow, you do all those things through those 3 reasons. You go to those people because you like them, you know them, and you trust them, and that's why you buy there. So give that some thought. You know, instead of maybe just throwing some buy buttons all over the internet or expecting random people just to find you and buy everything you have, try and build some knowing, some likability, and some trust, and you'll make far more money. Now, number 34, I would say to you, don't stomp on other people's dreams. Now, this is something I would probably have said to the younger version of myself, because sometimes when maybe a friend of mine said, well, I'm thinking of doing this, or I'm thinking of going here, sometimes, unfortunately, we open our gob and say something when we probably should have kept it shut. Because we don't really know if somebody can do something or if they can't do it. It's up to them to find that out. And sometimes by us saying, no, I don't think you can, or that's not right for you, or don't go there, sometimes you never know how you could have changed that person's life. And sometimes you're better off just keeping your mouth shut, because you don't know if that could be something that is going to get them to their dream or some happiness they may have in the future. But by you saying something stupid when you weren't thinking, could have just cut off that avenue. So, let people do what they want to do. And if they want to talk themselves out of it at some point, if they kind of think it over and say, well, I couldn't do it, or I couldn't see myself going there, or whatever, let them talk themselves out of it. But keep your own mouth shut and don't stamp on other people's dreams. Now, number 35 is something I'd also say to the younger version of myself, is that you will become your father one day. A lot of us like to think that we are more advanced than our parents. Our parents who embarrassed us, or our parents who said something stupid, or the way they dressed, or whatever they did. We look back and we think, well, I've evolved from my parents. I'm not my parents. I'm better than my parents. But I can guarantee you, as you get older, that you will find that you will probably be turning into your parents. One day you'll wake up and you realize your father or your mother, you'll say some daft things. You'll say something to your child where they are going to look at you and say, I've never heard of that person. Who are you talking about? And sometimes you might think that you are cool, that you are up with all the slang and all the, the terms, but you will find you'll probably have to go to the internet every so often to find out what the hell are your kids talking about. You don't know that person that they're talking about, or you don't know that slang term. And you are going to also discover the superpower in a mini nap. As you get older, you will realize there is nothing better than just flopping on the couch in the middle of the day and grabbing 40 winks for half an hour or an hour, and then waking up refreshed afterwards. So at some point, you are going to turn into your parents. Now, number 36, there's a reason that people drop out of your life. Some people will disappear from your life. Even some of your best friends, where maybe you've left school, or maybe you hung around with them for a couple of years after school, and for whatever reason you drift apart. You don't see them in a couple of weeks, a couple of months, or a couple of years. And sometimes we, try and go back and rebuild those relationships later on. But sometimes you find that there is a reason that you just drifted apart. Sometimes maybe that person was going on their own journey. Sometimes maybe your interest might turn you apart. And sometimes you will find that if you maybe go back to that person again and you try to build that relationship with them, you'll find that, a lot of water has passed under that bridge and you've got nothing in common. And sometimes, drifting away from someone could be the best thing that ever happened to you. Maybe some part of you, maybe subconsciously, knew that person wasn't right for you. And I found sometimes that when I've tried to get back with old friends or people from the past before that I've drifted away from, when I come back to them again, I realize, something, it's a mistake trying to get us back together again, because there was a reason we fell apart or we fell out. And it's better maybe just to let sleeping dogs lie and just move on with your life. So you may find that, I know I have, that sometimes there's a reason people drop out of your life, and just let them go and just continue on with your own life. Now, number 37 is anything can happen in the next half an hour. Now, I don't know if you know the TV show, or the British TV show Stingray, which was an animated show about this submarine, and it was all done with puppets. If you'll know it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, do a Google search for Stingray. But there was a kind of an intro at the start of the show, and one of the things that they would say in the intro message was that anything could happen in the next half an hour. And what they meant was, in this half an hour of this episode, you don't know what's going to happen. But I found that is also the same with life. Some great things can happen at a moment's notice. And again, some of your darkest moments can happen, at a moment's notice. Sometimes we feel that life is not going to change, or that this dark spell that we're going through, that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And sometimes something can happen just in a moment. It could be just something as instant as maybe scratching a scratch card, getting a phone call from someone, just getting some kind of random message from the universe or whatever. But sometimes your life can just turn in half an hour. And again too, maybe when you are going through a good moment, is just to savor that moment as long as you can and be grateful for the people that are around you or the things that are happening to you, because anything can happen in half an hour's time. Now, number 38 is that most businesses haven't got a clue what they're doing. You know, I found that some businesses that I got working for, some businesses who I thought were professional, knew what they were doing. You know, when you went to the job interview, you had your best suit on, they were sitting on the opposite side of the desk of you, and they came across as being professional. They asked you all these business questions, and you have this kind of feeling that this was going to be an amazing job that you got. You were going to be working for an amazing company. And then when you get working for it, you realize that behind that kind of, you know, persona or whatever fake thing they were putting in front of you, you find that when you get into that business that there are a lot of people there who aren't working, who aren't doing their jobs properly. And you find a lot of people who just haven't got a clue what they are doing. You know, when I worked for the last supermarket I worked for, you know, they would advertise on TV and they'd give off this kind of sense of being really brilliant. That way they knew what they were doing. And when I got in there and started working on that, in that company, it was crazy to see how, you know, there was more managers than there was staff. There was one department that didn't know what the other department was doing, and it was just complete chaos. And when you're on the inside, you often wonder, how the hell does this company keep going as long as it is when it is just so badly managed on the inside? And now, while you kind of maybe are, you know, wondering why the hell you are working for a company like that, it's well worth finding that out when you do work for a couple of companies, because when you do start your own business, you can see, well, I don't need to be perfect. If I do the best that I can, chances are good I'll probably do well. Because a lot of people, you know, behind all those logos, behind all those catchphrases, behind all that social media, they could be just, you know, trying things out, just throwing crap at the wall and hoping that something sticks, and they mightn't have got a clue what they're doing in the background. So sometimes looking up those people mightn't be the best thing, because you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So don't feel disheartened if everybody looks like they are more professional than you are, because if you probably spent a day following that person, you would probably find that they haven't got a clue what they're doing, and they are just trying to look as professional, but they're not really that much better than you. Now, number 39, I would say to you, is the coolest person in school never achieves anything. Again, I wish the younger version of myself knew that, because there was people in school and in, you know, secondary school who I thought were the coolest thing. You know, they were the best looking, they had the best clothes. They would just walk into the room and everybody would kind of stop and listen to them. And sometimes, you know, if we were sitting in a group, a lot of us would just kind of sit and listen to this one person as they were talking all the time, because we thought we were so cool, and that if we said something, it was going to be stupid, we were going to embarrass ourselves, and it's better just to keep our mouths shut. And sometimes you find that those people, you know, that those were the best days of their life. That when they left school, you know, nobody's seen them as cool anymore. Nobody's seen them as great as you did. And sometimes that moment of coolness that they had was, or will ever have, was just those couple of years in school. Outside school, nobody cared about them, and that they are irrelevant. And as well too, those people that you thought were good looking, give that a couple of years, and if you go back and look through their social media feeds, you will find that, you know, sometimes life and Mother Nature isn't as kind as it should be. And you will probably find that some people who you thought were the best looking ones at the time could be a complete car crash now. So the coolest person in school usually never achieves anything, because their coolest moment was when they're in school. And sometimes when they get out of school, they are afraid of losing that coolness. So they don't go into situations where they can embarrass themselves, or when they can grow, or when they can do some things that they can be criticized on, because they think they need to always be cool. And you will find those people will not do anything with their lives. Now, number 40, I would say to you, or I would say to the younger version of myself, you'll still be telling stories. Now, when I was growing up, my father was a truck driver, and what I would do in most summers was that I was either kind of being bored at home, or I was sent off working with my father in the lorry. Now, most times my mother didn't give me a choice of staying at home or going with my father. I was always sent with my father, so I would help him in the truck. And, you know, on those kind of long journeys all around Ireland, I would find that, you know, when I had nothing to do, I would tell him stories of things I'd watch on TV. And what I used to do was I would go through a TV episode, I would explain everything that happened. I would go through all the dialogue, and I'd play all the parts. And, you know, At the time, I don't know if my father was listening to me much, but I'll give him credit. You know, he was patient with me. He let me go through the story of what happened in the TV show. Now, some of these TV shows he probably didn't care about or he never watched, but he would listen to me and he'd ask questions about the character and what happened next and what happened then. And, you know, did the good guy escape or did this happen or that happen? And I would go through the whole TV show, you know, explaining everything to him. And over the years, I found that, you know, that kind of storytelling gene is still in me. You know, I'm even using it right now as I'm doing these podcast episodes. I'm still going back into stories from my past. So what I'll say to the younger version of myself is that, you know, that story, that telling story skill or that enjoying telling a story will stay with you from the rest of your life, and you will be able to carry it into content in the future, blog posts, social media posts, videos, podcasts and everything. Because when you think about it, telling stories is a great way to bond with your customers, your clients, and make people relax and get to know you a little bit more, because there is nothing that anybody can and prevent listening to. You know, if somebody says to you, once upon a time, how hard is it to switch off? Because there is a gene in us, or there is part of us that grew up in stories. It's part of our nature. And the better you get at telling stories, probably the more successful you're going to be, the more likability, the more trust that you are going to build. So if I was to go back to the younger version of myself, I would say to myself, keep telling stories, because it is probably going to be one of the most valuable skills you're going to have in the future. So that is the top 40 of my tips for my top 50. So in part 5 tomorrow, we are going to have a look at the last 10 things that I have found on the way to my 50th birthday. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today. If you'd like more from the rightcome.com podcast, be sure to subscribe now for more tips, tricks, and ideas you can use to make more money from your words. See you in the next episode.